It's rare that I talk about mental health, so I want to start this video by saying nothing I say in this video is medical or mental health advice. I'm not a medical or mental health provider. I do have some training in mental health because I did work in the field, but that's out of date. So I'm not a mental health provider. I'm not actively a mental health provider. I've never had any licenses in mental health. And any training I had in mental health is out of date. So this video should not be taken as medical or mental health advice. Why am I making this video? Well, this video is going to be about confirmation bias amongst mental health professionals in the validity of what they do. Now, it's rare that I ever talk about my personal mental health issues, okay? The truth of the matter is, for about the past 8 or 9 years, I've been plagued with suicidality based off of who knows what, honestly. It could be my life, it could be issues. I think a lot of the severe mental health issues I have that have sprang forth over the past, I'd say, 10 years have come about due to a combination of severe malnourishment when I was homeless, as well as the medication Seroquel. I can't prove that, but I do believe that because that's when it took place. I was fine until I started taking Seroquel. I was on over 1,000 milligrams of Seroquel a day for about a month. And it really did do a number on my brain, I think. Unfortunately, that's not provable. Now, why am I talking about this? Well, I watch a channel. The gentleman's name is Todd Grande, Dr. Todd Grande. Now, I was brought to his channel originally because of the true crime he does. I'm a fan of true crime because I did major in criminal justice, and I've always been interested in true crime, forensics, forensic psychology, things of that nature. And he did a video on Arthur Janov, the gentleman that discovered primal therapy, stating that it's not really effective. Well, the reality is therapy isn't really effective. Again, I don't talk about my personal life and what I do on a daily basis, but I've been participating in dialectical behavioral therapy for the past, I'd say, 6 months or so. And honestly, dialectical behavioral therapy is basically, it's a copyrighted form. It's a mishmash of crap taken from other systems, packaged, copyrighted, and sold to people. And what it says, I mean, it's really ridiculous. There's a diary card you fill out, blah, 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 and you have certain skills that you implement. What people don't understand, these skills are skills of mindfulness that go back thousands and thousands of years to Buddhism. Now, the thing is, what people don't know is, in order to try and make myself well, and I have had some success in some ways, and the most successful thing that I've had has been nutritional therapies, particularly diet and nutraceuticals, and exercise, real exercise with weights and calisthenics and running and things like that. That's what helps mental health, in my opinion, with me personally. As far as therapy is concerned, like mindfulness, for example, this DBT to me is just, it's a bunch of hooey. I participate in it so I can get therapy. Now, what is therapy? It doesn't matter what you call it or what have you. I think really the only useful part of therapy is to have somebody on the outside that's not you that can say, hey buddy, you're acting a little bit crazy right now. We need to take a step back and look at this. And do you need a therapist to do this? Some people do, like me. I don't have a vast network of friends, and I don't have friends that are very interested in hearing my troubles. And that's where a therapist comes in. But that's not everybody needs a therapist. I used to work at a drop-in center, and I'll be quite honest, I simultaneously worked at a clinical mental health center, mental health center, and a drop-in center. at the same time. Now, what a drop-in center is where people with drug and alcohol problems and mental health problems and any type of problem really can just show up for free and hang out with other people that are nuts, okay? And share stories and, talk to each other and what have you. More people got help, honest to goodness help, at the drop-in center than the clinical mental health center. Now, I was talking to a friend of mine, and she was concerned that, with the COVID-19, not many people can get the drop-in center I used to work at, and can't get the help that they were getting, the ability to get out and talk to people and relax and things of that nature. And I've seriously considered doing YouTube lives on these topics, just to have people come in, share whatever they want, what have you. But I don't have a lot of people in my local community following me. But the fact of the matter is, we're reaching through technology an era where we don't need brick and mortar places to meet. We've already done that years ago with phones. I mean, you could have a group call and what have you. But I think too many people are not taking advantage of technology to aid in mental health. Now, as far as therapy is concerned, I think more or less a lot of this crap, like for example, mindfulness. Mindfulness has been done by Buddhists and Hindus and Taoists for thousands of years. In fact, they didn't even change the name of it when they turned it into therapy. It was still called mindfulness. But they packaged it in a neat little package, sold it to people, and said, buy this, you'll get better. And people don't get better. It's not that easy to get people better. My personal diagnosis is post-traumatic stress disorder. So I learned what I could about that. And honestly, what it seems is people that respond best to exercise and things that help the brain function. It's a brain issue, PTSD seems to be. So the therapy doesn't really seem to work. Now, with the DBT and the mindfulness, what they're telling you is you need to implement this skill or that skill and what have you. What they're not understanding, this is the beautiful thing about therapy, it's beautifully ignorant, and it beautifully causes confirmation bias amongst therapists in the sense that they think that what is implemented in a controlled setting in the therapist's office can be then reproduced under a time of stress when the person is alone, under a time of stress when the person is in an area where it's inappropriate to, you start chanting a mantra in the middle of a department store, people are going to call the police. I mean, that's the honest truth here. But the thing is, I also want to point out, I think that a lot of these things, like Dr. Grande said, is a lot of these people don't understand they are doing more harm than good. And my history with medication as a youth is really, it's proof. Now, one of the problems I had is I was put on medication to deaden my emotions and to just deaden me when I was a kid. And let me get this off the bat. I've done some horrible things to some horrible people. Nothing I did was something that I did to somebody that didn't deserve it. And the environments I was in these juvenile delinquent schools and things like that, I did not do anything to anybody that didn't deserve what happened. They might not have deserved the level of what happened, but that is the reason that I was capable of doing such things to people was because of these medications. And the medications alter the way that your mind works, where you no longer have a conscience. And what happened was you start to believe that that's who you are. So it messes you up in the head more psychologically. I mean, honestly, one of my biggest problems, I think, with PTSD, A lot of people like to go back to my father. My father committed suicide, and when I was there, and I got his blood on me, I gave him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, whatever. He had shot himself in the head. So a lot of people like to go back to that as the root cause of my PTSD. It wasn't. I mean, and that's the thing, is they go back to what's stereotypical. What the cause of my PTSD was all these horrible things, in my opinion, all these horrible things I had done to people that I shouldn't have been able to do to people. Like, that's the whole thing, and then when you get off the medication and you start to grow a conscience again, it starts to sink in that, yeah, like, the thing is, I've never done anything that wasn't self-defense. I've never purposely aggressed towards somebody. However, there's a level of overkill when you're in a fight that it's just not appropriate to go any further. So when I took myself off the medications, essentially, but my psychiatrist did agree with it, you start regaining a conscience. You start thinking about things that you did and did wrong and could have done differently and things like that. And it's bad to live with that in your head. But this is the thing that these medications, this is the harm that these medications do. And as I said, I am not a medical doctor. I'm not a mental health professional. But I want to put this out there, and I'm saying this is not medical advice. I'm not telling people to stop their medication or start medication or do drugs or don't do drugs. But a lot of people have accused me of being a Scientologist because I promote the Citizens Commission for Human Rights. I made a video about Leah Remini, how Leah Remini has come out against Scientology for these alleged acts against children, but joined the Catholic Church that's actively raping children. Okay, which tells me Leah Remini is up to no good. My point is it's not so much that I'm a Scientologist. Like, this is the thing with Dr. Grande. I think he's made other videos about L. Ron Hubbard, actually. I think I'll leave a link to that, too. The thing is auditing helpful? Okay, I've never been audited. I don't plan to be audited. I don't go to any Scientology center, what have you. What my question would be, is auditing harmful? Probably not. Okay? Probably not. It's probably not very harmful to go to an auditor or whatever the situation is and they regress you a bit and blah, blah, blah. That's probably not going to hurt anybody. It's not going to deaden somebody's emotions. It's not going to turn somebody into an animal. Okay? These medications, what I'm saying from personal experience, they do. Okay? So, and the thing is, with the Narconon program, people accuse me of being a Scientologist because I support Narconon. Narconon is a drug rehabilitation program that makes use of L. Ron Hubbard's Hubbard method or purification rundown. I've made a video about that. I'll leave a link to my video in the description. Some people will go, well, somebody died at a Narconon rehab. People die all the time in mental hospitals, drug rehabs, what have you, and a lot of times it's due to unknown underlying health conditions or a combination of all these drugs. Now, Narconon does not use drugs to get you off drugs, okay? But you have to withdraw and whatnot, but a lot of these mental hospitals and things like that, what's killing these people? They're on these super cocktails of God knows what. Nobody knows how these things interact with one another when you're on 20 different medications and what have you. And that's the thing. Narconon has been proven, and I'll leave a PubMed link to prove it. Narconon works. It might not work. I mean, this is the thing. This is the same thing with the recovery, like Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, what have you. When I was homeless, I used to go into AA for the free coffee, okay? Because you need to get warm somewhere when it's like 20 degrees Fahrenheit out. So I would go to AA and drink the free coffee. Now, a lot of people will say AA is bullcrap because a lot of the people are still addicted to something, addicted to gambling, addicted to methadone, addicted to what have you. And that's very true, but that's not the AA program. So your problem with AA is, like I've said in the past, my problem with Christianity wasn't Christianity, it was the fake Christians calling themselves Christians. I'm not a Christian. I will never be a Christian. It doesn't mesh with me. But the fact of the matter is, Christianity is not the problem. It's the phony Christians. Alcoholics Anonymous and these other 12-step groups are not the problem. It's the phonies that are working fake programs that are the problem. So my thing is this: Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, etc. You're getting help at these places for free, and it does work because people do get sober on these programs with the help of a sponsor and things like that, because the sponsor is somebody that can say, hey buddy, you're acting crazy, let's dial it back a bit and talk about things. The problem is a lot of that tradition is dying, and people are losing that. They're starting to, really, it's getting out of whack, but that's off topic. My point is that things like Alcoholics Anonymous, things like auditing, things like drop-in centers, for the most part, are not hurting anybody. One of the problems you do have with things like this is people with parasitic personalities, and people that have psychopathy and things like that do take advantage of vulnerable people at some of these places. But that happens at mental health clinics. When I worked in a community mental health clinic, my office was in the area where the groups were held. And my direct supervisor was the head of the program where the groups were held. And they're telling people to hang out and get together and all this crazy crap. And I took it upon myself, because I was running groups too. I was running groups in the partial hospital. I explained to these people, some of these people are getting themselves into trouble. Some of the women were getting raped. Things were happening to their kids that shouldn't have been happening to their kids. People were doing drugs with druggies because they hadn't done drugs before, and then they meet a druggie and they're taking them home. And I explained to the people, consider where you're at. You're at a mental health clinic. Consider this fact, and consider the fact that you don't want to be bringing these people home, especially if you have children, but you don't want to be bringing these people home. You don't want to be meeting these people personally, one-on-one. And if you do, you want to do so in a public area. I used to be, as I've said, I used to be a martial arts instructor and a self-defense instructor. And the problem is with a lot of these mental health professionals is they don't have a lick of common sense when it comes to how to handle oneself in these situations. So they were purposely putting people into dangerous situations in the guise of helping people help one another. And that is the downside, the only downside I see of the drop-in centers and things like that, is it does put vulnerable people at risk of being the prey of predatory people. But for the most part, I really think that mental health professionals, therapists, psychiatrists, etc., they really do have a lot of confirmation bias, and they really do believe that what they're selling, their snake oil, is effective when it's not. When it's proven time and time and time and time again, it's not. And I'll say, I'm not better, okay? I'm not well. But the fact of the matter is, and that's why I don't say this, because it puts me at a disadvantage for people that troll my channel, okay, to come out and say whatever they're going to say to me. But the fact of the matter is, I'm not as bad off as I would be if I was receiving massive amounts of medication and was unable to question things. If I was doing what the mental health field said. One of the things that's interesting is my last therapist, what he said, I'm being treated with medication for tachycardia and asthma now, because they found out I have tachycardia and asthma. And my therapist goes, so you're not against medication? And I said, no, I'll take medication that works. But as far as psychiatric medication is concerned, it does not work. It has harmed me psychologically and physically. For all I know, the medical issues I have are due to the medication. I truly believe that. I can't prove it, but I do truly believe it. And that's the thing, is if medication works, and that's the big thing with Scientology, if you go back to, if you read Dianetics and all that stuff, the difference is the medication is not a problem if you're treating a medical condition with medicine. Okay, so an antibiotic, no big deal. Asthma medication, no big deal. These medications are utilized to treat legitimate issues with the person's physiology. Mental health issues, although I am a firm believer in the medical model, and I do believe that there is a medical core to a lot of these issues, I do also believe some of them are caused by, for example, like me, where you just get a flood of remorse and things of that nature. That can't necessarily be easily explained, okay? So there is a degree of philosophy involved, and I do think that these things are helpful. Just like I've said this before, I think that psychology is helpful like philosophy is helpful, or religion is helpful, but it's also harmful in the same way. I believe that more practical models, such as the Maslowian hierarchy of needs, need to be explored and things of that nature. And I believe these more spacey concepts like Jung and all that, that needs to be really highly questioned as to whether it's even remotely realistic. But the fact of the matter is, confirmation bias, when a therapist is telling somebody they have confirmation bias or something like that, it's very hard to believe what a therapist says, and it's very hard to, like, psychology should not be considered a science. And somebody did a video about my video about this, and I'll leave a link to that. You should not have the ability to call psychology a science when psychology fails the reproducibility aspect of the scientific method. So there is a real reproducibility problem in psychology, meaning when people try to reproduce the experiments to prove the results of the first experiment, it's not happening. And that's not science, it is philosophy. Doesn't mean it's useless. The humanities are very useful at helping people. But what it does mean is that it is not legit science and should not be called legit science. And that's all for this video. I'm going to leave some links in the description people should feel free to follow.